Morning, good morning, good afternoon. Um, Edwin Martinez here from Onyx, here with Oscar Melgar, and I am currently in Washington State. Oscar, where are you?
I am in our lab in Guatemala City, enjoying actually a really nice vista al bosque geisha. Really good.
Oh, nice,
Sí, sí.
very nice. I I'm actually drinking a coffee from the Coffee Collective. It's a Colombian coffee. We have a subscription, so I end up trying whatever they're sending. It's very, very nice. So if you're watching, you maybe were expecting Kate from Snake River, and she's feeling a little under the weather. So we decided that Oscar was going to pretend to be Kate. Um, Not really, but so we may roll it over, but um, we thought we would just take this opportunity to hop on for a little bit and just talk and share a few things that are on our mind right now.
That is great. Yeah. It's good. And yeah, there are a couple of things that people have been talking, and I think it's great that we're taking this time, maybe a little bit shorter, maybe a little bit longer, but there were some people earlier this week. Some people might have seen it, but we've got a new run on our decaf, and you did a cupping in Washington State. Some people were asking about that, and maybe you can walk us through what do we have, a little bit of that decaf.
Absolutely. So just to give you a preview, there are two big ideas that we want to chat about, and this is one of them. Um, and so I wanted to share on the why and how we started decaffeinating. And this goes back to the Cup of Excellence has been around for 20 years, and we've participated almost every single year. From submitting, we have our own farm, Finca Vista Hermosa, to getting licenses and supporting other small and mid-sized producers to participate, and buying. Of course, we've bought one, two, three, four, sometimes over half a dozen lots in the Cup of Excellence. Um, and so you're wondering, why am I talking about the Cup of Excellence in the last 20 years? And what does that have to do with decaf? I'll tell you. Um, there's a lot of risk when you're buying a small lot of a special coffee. There's a lot of work that goes into producing something remarkable. And in the entire supply chain, there's a lot of complexity to not mess it up. And if you're a roaster, you know that the coffees you pay the most for oftentimes are not coffees that you make any money on. You often will lose money, but they're often the ones you're most excited about. And you spend more time coming up with how to market and talk about something that you really like. You spend more money on a unique label, maybe even unique packaging that's different than normal, that's smaller. Maybe it's a tube or a box, or a different short run bag. Um, you get the point. There's a lot of investment. And I don't need to share with you that if it's coming from the Cup of Excellence or a gem, for example, of our coffees, a lot of work has gone into it before it even leaves the farm. And so, what does this have to do with decaf? We've always been a big fan, and it's a big risk with these special lots. And sometimes we have some left over. Someone might buy 5 out of 7 boxes, and someone might buy 20 out of 22. And so then we've got 2 left here and 2 left here. And they're not cheap. So if someone wasn't planning to buy it and we have a little bit that's left over, it's a lot of work for us to invest into marketing something that we have just a small amount of. And so we just don't get to it sometimes. And that's part of the pain of complexity when you're pursuing some of these really amazing coffees that aren't part of the base of the business. And so many years ago, I had a handful of leftovers, and time passed, and I thought, I can't sell these for what we paid for them. What are we going to do? Long story short, or long story even longer, we sent them to Swiss Water. They thought that I had made a mistake because they said, we received your coffees, we're ready to decaffeinate them, but you must have shipped the wrong coffees, because we received boxes and inside vacuum packed coffees, and surely that's not what you meant to send to Swiss Water. And the boxes say Cup of Excellence, and there's all kinds of different winning lots. And I said, nope, that's there's no mistake. Go for it. So there's another risk there, that there's a blend. Usually you want to have something uniform. So there's a bit of thought that went into it, but we wanted to maximize and have something that we couldn't sell well to experiment. The output was amazing. And we realized we actually don't need to have auction lots to have a delicious decaf come out. So after that, we just picked a really great lot that we had more volume of, and we processed that. And the rest is history. So that's kind of what it led up to. We're very excited and proud, I think, of the flavors that we're getting and the quality in the Swiss Water runs. So if we still have some, I'm sure we probably do. If not, we'll be doing another run really soon. You can reach out to us, hola@onyxcoffee.com, and we'll send you some samples. But that's some of the history on the how and the why. Why did we choose to start sending really delicious coffees? We, of course, don't send Cup of Excellence coffees on purpose to be decaffeinated. But you can count on the fact that we are sending really good coffees. We're not finding something cheap because nobody cares about what decaf tastes like. We're taking it seriously and really enjoying it, and hope you do as well.
That is wonderful. And for those who might not be aware, could you share more about which specific coffees did we send our last round on decaffeination?
Sure. On this last round, it was Alma. And this is something that we've been intentional on with the work that we're doing, really in the table right in front of you, Oscar, as you know, of quality control. We aim for consistency over time. And so that's even more important when it comes to decaffeination. And we really had the opportunity to think through that a lot when I sent a bunch of leftover Cup of Excellence lots, because the input was very inconsistent. So we didn't know what to expect on the output. Yeah, also just adding, it's a really clean, sweet. It's a high elevation, so the density is really good. And the reason we do the minimum run is, coffee is an agricultural product, and so it does have a shelf life. Most of the coffees we're working with are pretty good because they have a higher density in terms of strong shelf life. But the process of decaffeination, it's not quite like roasting in terms of reducing it. But once you roast, your shelf life is, the clock starts ticking, and it's going to be a much shorter shelf life when you roast. So when you decaffeinate, it's not quite the same, but it is a shorter shelf life once you decaffeinate. So our aim is to do the smallest run. And so that's what we did with this last Alma. And I'm not sure what it is, but I know we've got the next one probably already queued up, and we'll share about it I'm guessing within a month or so.
Yeah, that's exciting. Alma is one of my favorite blends that we've got, and this is one of the kind of coffees that I can just drink pot after pot, and it's just really pleasant, nice, really good guate. And for those who don't know what Swiss Water decaf is, I'm sure most people do, but there's probably someone out there that's like, what is Swiss Water, and why did we decided to go with that process instead of other that are out there for decaffeination?
There are a couple answers. One, I would say first and foremost, is just not using chemicals. That's the first one. And I guess I would just leave it at that. I mean, the other reasons are that we do have some efficiency and speed and convenience, and those are all certainly valuable. Having a lot of our coffee on the west coast of the United States, and the Swiss Water plant is about 45 minutes north, just over the border in Canada here. And And so proximity efficiency is certainly helpful versus shipping to another continent, typically from a producing country and then coming here. But I guess I do want to point out, as you're asking this, that there's something on the economics that most people don't think about with Swiss water. Most decaffeination processes they have a process that usually is using a chemical of some sort and some filtration, saturation. They're extracting caffeine. And so if you have your raw coffee coming in here, at the end of the plant, you've got coffee without caffeine, and then you've got caffeine that is a product that can be sold. And so they can generate income or revenue selling that product. Swiss water, uniquely, and I don't understand this. This is over my head, and there's some very smart people, and I've asked them to explain it to me, and I still don't understand. But it's filtered. There's carbon filters. Once they do get the caffeine, it's incinerated, and so I said, so where does it go? Do you end up with caffeine in a syringe or in a jar or in a container, in a cylinder? And it's like, no, it's burned up, and so it's in the air. So Vancouver, British Columbia, I wonder, is that the most caffeinated city in the world? Because there's coffee from all over the world that's coming there, and the caffeine's being taken out, and then it's just going into the air. And he said, well, maybe, probably not. It's probably just in the filters, and then they do reuse the filters. They repurpose them, and occasionally then they'll have to change them out. But why am I sharing all that? Because if you don't have something to sell at a decaffeination plant, if you don't have caffeine to sell, then the cost of decaffeination is higher, because that is the revenue. So Swiss water process doesn't sell caffeine. And so the cost of removing the caffeine without chemicals is higher, because there isn't a source of income from sale of caffeine to offset that. All that to say, sometimes people wonder, roasters will, why is Swiss water process more expensive? Is it all marketing? Like, no, it is a higher cost, and there isn't another revenue to offset it. But
and it's really delicious. I think some people who have never tried it and don't have experience in coffee, if you put one Swiss water on the table next to a regular caffeinated coffee, they may not even realize it's a decaf, which is good.
Yeah, and that was the case when we cupped this. So that little clip that I shot that you helped edit, that you edited, the next day we cupped along with 3 or 4 other coffees, and that was exactly the experience. And we have that often. It's not always like that. We usually can tell, but this run is really good, and it's exciting because it's really good at the hardest time of year to find just good centrals in general.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Now, switching off topics a little bit here, you might have seen the market this morning actually hit I think a new all-time high again at 349.77, and I'm sure many people might be sitting on their chair every morning just looking at the roller coaster that the market has been. Do you have any thoughts on the market and the price right now?
So many. I'm just looking at the time. We're about 14 minutes in here, and I want to keep this really brief. I think there's a lot I could share here, but there's a lot of people much smarter than I am that are putting content out there, and so I encourage people to search and find it. Everything from, if you're very technical in trading, and to getting, I think, really honest insights. I know that I on our team shared, hey, have you seen, this is on Instagram, he pointed out Deaton of Tectonic in Los Angeles. Check that out. It's just some really good, just processing of his perspective, which I think is great, on what's happened since the beginning of 2024, some of the causes, and some of the impacts. So I think just at a high level, I know a lot of our audience is mostly roasters. Um, so I want to acknowledge that there's, I think, important messages for a lot of people in the entire supply chain. Um, but I think um, for the most part, roasters are in a space where it's been a sense of what strategy are we going to employ, because our costs are higher, and and we need to raise prices unless the market's going to come down. We don't know if it's going to come down. We were thinking maybe it would, and it's gone up. And from a lot of analysts, what we've heard is if it goes up past a certain point, then all of the fundamentals are thrown out the window. And that's an indication that things could just keep going up. And so we have passed that point. And so there's a lot of unpredictability. And I want to contrast that with, I think, the work is to create as much predictability as possible. There's a lot that we can't control. So deciding what can you control, and being proactive in communication up and down the supply chain as much as possible. And then being willing to make some hard decisions that I think a lot have made, and a lot of companies, both big and small, haven't yet. But that's the decision to make some sort of an increase. I think there's largely a hope from a lot of people that this market will calm down, but there's cumulative shortages that make it unlikely that it's going to go down a lot anytime soon. And so if that's a reality, how does a business manage it if their costs are up, and the margin is really slim or gone, and it's not there? And so the two paths people look at are, well, we can increase prices, but we're not going to do that because we need to be competitive, and we're going to lose business. We'll lose customers if we do that. And so largely, almost everyone, I would say everyone, has looked to find value. And value is a funny word. Value, you think of what are your core values. That to me says what's important to you and who you are, why do you exist. But when you use the word value in terms of buying a product, it usually means cheap or low cost. And there's lots of ways to define it, but people are looking for, they're more price sensitive. And so you try and find other options of similar quality for a lower price. What else? And that's a really good creative first step. But what that does is it creates disruption. And that's really the big challenge in the industry, disruption to relationships in the entire supply chain. So the products that we're moving through, the same consolidators, buyers, exporters, importers, roasters, that same flow, instead of going whatever path it was going to go, it's going like this. And that's more work. And ultimately, it's also more money that's required to do the same amount of business. So today at Pacific time, it's 11:33 on the West Coast, and at about 8, so about 3 hours ago, is where we hit 349.77 to be exact. So maybe I'll just close with just talking about that number. A year ago, I think the mindset was a basis of between $1 to $1.50 less on the market. And we would hear a lot of roasters that were more price sensitive using the word value, saying we're really looking for something that's under $3. And so we would hear that a lot and think, okay, we may not have something for you then. And that's okay. Well, today we can't buy something for $3. We in Guatemala, we can't buy something for the market $3.49. There's differentials on top of that. So for a low quality coffee, we're getting close to $4, and the coffee hasn't even left Guatemala. and this is a lower commercial grade. So the question a year ago of trying to find a value coffee that we may not be able to provide a solution to, seeking something under $3, that's now $4.50 to $5. So finding something under $5, I think, is increasingly challenging. So we've had a lot of people just looking for, do you have anything that you just want to get rid of and liquidate? And so the more you have that, you find that the inventories that don't move start disappearing. And so when the physical inventories of what you want doesn't exist anymore, and the physical inventories of what you don't really want, but it'll work in a pinch, when that disappears, you've got demand that doesn't go down and supply that's short. And so the biggest gap right now is that there's not a lot of physical inventory, and everyone that has planned in the past for however far out they're used to planning, that time span for how far out they plan is shorter and shorter and shorter. So the demand is very real, and the supply is simply not there. So this all sounds like a lot of doom and gloom. I think, this is what it's like most years for farmers. I just want to point that out. Most years, cost of production is not covered. And so all of a sudden now, this is 1 year. 1 year is not enough. I would not be opposed to the market just staying where it is and continuing up. That's improbable, but I do want to share just a takeaway of what perspective I think you could have if you're a roaster and you're just trying to make a really, really hard decision. Do I raise prices and I'm going to lose some customers? You may not. You probably will. But I think it's going to push us to be more clear about what we do, why we do what we do. And so if quality is important, this is a time to really focus on quality, and it's going to be a lot more work. Ironically, when the market is up, it's harder to find good quality, and that's true everywhere. And so we have to do a lot more work to try and maintain quality. Forget about improving. It's a lot of work to try and maintain. And so I think what you can do as a roaster is look at the short term and make some decisions on what you can do now to create some predictability. And I'll just tell you right now that what that plan looks like, what that probably the best plan looks like, is not going to be one that you like. But the sooner you face that, the sooner you can do what I think are the most important pieces, are to proactively communicate with your customers, with your team, with your supply chain. And so the more communication that's happening, the more we can calibrate on our realities. So you don't want to try and make a long-term commitment. I think very few people are thinking about that. It's been quite the opposite. But you want to try and build some more predictability so you're not panicking, trying to figure out what to do for next month. And so I can't share what I think you should do, but an idea is to be thinking in terms of however long you used to plan and not planning at all, find something somewhere in between. The old plans aren't going to work. Doing nothing is a bad idea. So find something in between. It's going to be uncomfortable, but clarify it as much as possible. Lay out a few steps and just take them and move forward. So I think Oscar will close with that. I mean, it's just really an encouragement to communicate and build predictability. Build predictability in the small things.
Yeah, this is great. A lot of value. Thank you, Edwin. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on the market. What, as you said, like, we're not trying to tell people what to do, but kind of like just bringing all the factors on the table, and everyone should be free to take their best decision. And yeah, thanks for taking this time for sharing all this. And yeah, looking forward for our next live.
Yeah. Likewise. Thank you much, Oscar. Looking forward to seeing you soon as well.
Gracias. Thanks everyone to connected to this